I just stood there in complete disbelief as my younger brother Tyler flashed that smug smile of his, casually announcing he wanted to hijack the most important day of my life. The wedding Julia and I had spent years saving for was suddenly becoming his proposal platform. 8 years together, with the most amazing woman in my family, still thought Tyler deserved the spotlight. The worst part? No one saw anything wrong with it. If you're watching this from a place where family drama hits close to home, go ahead and hit subscribe. I'm about to show you how I finally stood up to my family after 30 years of being second best. Growing up in suburban Chicago, I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. As the firstborn, my parents Harold and Diana expected perfection from me, while my brother Tyler could do no wrong. I still remember my dad's stern face when I brought home a B+ in calculus, while Tyler's D in basic math was met with, "Well, not everyone's good at numbers, but you tried your best, buddy." This double standard followed us throughout childhood and into our adult lives. By 16, I was working weekends at the local hardware store, saving every dollar for college. My parents made it clear early on that my education was primarily my responsibility. "It builds character, Nestor," my dad would say conveniently, forgetting that this character-building philosophy only applied to me. Meanwhile, Tyler spent his high school years playing video games and partying secure in the knowledge that mom and dad would foot his college bill regardless of his mediocre grades. Despite the obstacles, I worked my way through State University, juggling full-time classes with 30 hours weekly at a campus bookstore. I graduated with minimal debt and a degree in business management. No one from my family attended my graduation ceremony because it coincided with Tyler's high school baseball tournament. "You understand, right? This could be a big opportunity for your brother," Mom explained over the phone. I pretended it didn't hurt. The pattern continued into adulthood. When I landed my first corporate job, my parents gave an obligatory congratulations before quickly changing the subject to Tyler's latest adventure, backpacking through Europe after dropping out of his first college attempt. They covered all his expenses, of course. "He's finding himself," they explained, as though self-discovery was a luxury I was never entitled to. Tyler always possessed an undeniable charm that I lacked. With his easy smile and confident demeanor, he could talk his way out of any situation. This charisma masked a profound irresponsibility that our parents refused to acknowledge. By 25, Tyler had dropped out of college twice held and lost 7 different jobs and accumulated substantial credit card debt that my parents quietly paid off. Each time Tyler failed, a familiar scenario unfolded. He would show up at our parents' house, usually with puffy eyes and a rehearsed story about circumstances beyond his control. Mom would make his favorite meal while Dad wrote another check. Family supports family, they would remind me whenever I questioned this arrangement. The subtext was clear: I was somehow less family for expecting Tyler to face consequences. Last Christmas, I discovered my parents had dipped into their retirement savings to cover Tyler's rent for 6 months after he had a disagreement with his boss and quit without notice. When I expressed concern about their financial security, my mother actually said, "Your brother needs our help right now. You've always been able to take care of yourself," as if my self-sufficiency was a character flaw rather than a virtue. Julia entered my life during junior year of college, and from our first meeting in an economics class, she understood me in ways no one else ever had. With warm brown eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and a practical wisdom beyond her years, she saw through the walls I had built around myself. On our third date, when I awkwardly tried to explain why I needed to cut dinner short to make it to my night shift, she simply nodded and said, "I respect how hard you work. Let me walk with you." Unlike my family, Julia valued my dedication and responsibility. The daughter of hardworking immigrants, she shared my belief in earning your way and standing on your own feet. When I finally introduced her to my family after 6 months of dating, she immediately picked up on the dynamics. "They treat you like an afterthought," she whispered, as we drove home from that first disastrous dinner. It was the first time anyone had validated what I had felt my entire life. Over the next 8 years, Julia and I built our life brick by steady brick. We supported each other through graduate degrees, celebrated job promotions, and saved diligently for our future. When we finally had enough for a modest down payment, we bought a small townhouse in a nice neighborhood. My parents attended our housewarming with Tyler in tow, who spent the entire evening complaining about his latest roommate drama, while my father suggested places he could stay until things settled down. 2 years ago, I asked Julia to marry me during a weekend trip to Michigan. I had planned every detail for months, from the lakeside picnic to the photographer hidden nearby to capture the moment. When she said yes, it felt like everything in my life finally made sense. The long hours, the sacrifices, the years of feeling second best to my brother, all of it seemed worth it, to build this life with someone who truly saw me. Wedding planning became our shared project. Every weekend for 2 years, we set aside money from our paychecks into a special account. Julia's parents, though far from wealthy, contributed what they could. My parents offered a token amount, explaining that things were tight after helping Tyler with some unexpected expenses. We accepted gratefully and continued planning the modest but meaningful celebration we had envisioned. By early spring this year, everything was falling into place. We had secured a charming venue for June 15th, finalized the menu, and sent out invitations. Julia found a beautiful dress within our budget, and my suit was tailored to perfection. The guest list was intimate, just 80 of our closest friends and family. After years of waiting and planning, our perfect day was finally within reach. The bomb dropped during a family dinner exactly 1 month before our wedding. We had gathered at my parents' house to discuss final arrangements when Tyler cleared his throat dramatically. "So I have something exciting to announce," he said, grabbing the hand of Amber, his girlfriend of 4 months. "I'm planning to propose to Amber at your wedding reception." He wasn't asking, he was telling. I choked on my water. "You're what I'm going to propose at your reception," Tyler repeated slowly, as if I simply hadn't heard him. "It's perfect timing since everyone will be there anyway, and the setting will already be romantic." I looked at Julia, whose face had gone completely still, then at Amber, who was beaming with anticipation, finally at my parents, expecting them to correct this absurdity. Instead, my mother clasped her hands together. Oh, how beautiful. 2 celebrations in 1 day. My father nodded enthusiastically. Very efficient, too. "The photographer will already be there to capture both moments." "You can't be serious," I said, looking around the table. "This is our wedding day, the one day that's supposed to be about Julia and me." Tyler rolled his eyes. "Dude, it's just a quick moment during the reception. Don't be so dramatic." "It's not dramatic to want our wedding day to be about our wedding," Julia said quietly, her voice tight with controlled emotion. My mother reached across the table to pat Julia's hand. "Sweetie, there's plenty of attention to go around. Wouldn't it be wonderful to share the joy? After all, we're family." That word again. Family. The magical incantation used to excuse every boundary violation, every double standard, every instance where Tyler's wants superseded my needs. "We need to think about this," I said firmly, knowing it was the closest I could come to a direct no without causing a scene. Julia squeezed my hand under the table in silent support. The next few weeks became a pressure campaign. Tyler texted me daily with increasingly elaborate proposal ideas, each more intrusive than the last. "What if I do it right after your first dance?" Or, "How about during the cake cutting? That would make for awesome photos." My parents called, constantly pushing me to be the bigger person and support your brother's happiness. My mother even suggested we include Amber in the bridal party photos, since she'll be family soon too. The situation escalated when I learned Tyler had already told Amber it was happening at our wedding. "She's already told her family," my mother informed me. "They're so excited." "You wouldn't want to disappoint everyone, would you?" Each night, Julia and I would discuss the situation, our frustration mounting. "This is exactly what they've always done," I told her one evening as we sat on our porch swing. They expect me to step aside so Tyler can take center stage. You know I'll support whatever decision you make, Julia said, leaning her head on my shoulder, but I also think it's okay to say no. This is our day, the one we've been saving for and planning for years. The constant pressure began affecting our sleep, our work, even our excitement about the wedding itself. What should have been a joyful time became clouded with anxiety and resentment. I found myself second-guessing everything, wondering if standing firm made me selfish or if giving in made me a doormat once again. 1 week before the wedding, my parents insisted on another family dinner to finalize the details. We arrived to find not just my parents and Tyler, but Amber and her parents as well, all beaming with anticipation. Before we even finished the appetizers, Tyler pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a diamond ring. What do you think I'm going to propose with this during your first dance? Amber's dad is going to cue the DJ to change the music when I walk out. I stared at him, unable to comprehend the audacity. They had planned all this without our consent. They had invited Amber's parents. They had coordinated with our DJ. We've already discussed where the photographer should stand to capture both couples, my mother added cheerfully. Amber clapped her hands together. I've been practicing my surprised face, she demonstrated, with an exaggerated gasp that made her parents laugh. I'm thinking right as your dance ends. Tyler continued oblivious to my silence. I'll tap you on the shoulder, you step aside, and then I'll go down on one knee. It'll be so romantic. Amber's mother sighed. Two brothers sharing such a special moment. Julia's hand found mine under the table, squeezing so tightly it almost hurt. When I glanced at her, I saw not just hurt, but genuine anger in her eyes. In that moment, something inside me finally snapped. I stood up so abruptly that my chair tipped over behind me, crashing to the floor with a sound that silenced the room. No, I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm raging inside me. Absolutely not. Tyler blinked at me, genuinely confused. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, you will not propose at our wedding. No, you will not interrupt our first dance. No, you will not make our day about you. Just no. My father frowned. Son, there's no need to be rude. Your brother is sharing a special moment with the family. A special moment. You mean my special moment. The one day that should be about Julia and me, and somehow it's turning into the Tyler show again. The words were pouring out now, years of suppressed frustration finding their voice. That's not fair, my mother protested. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Was it fair when you skipped my college graduation for Tyler's baseball game? Was it fair when you paid for his second attempt at college while I worked 30 hours a week to pay my own way? Is it fair that every achievement in my life has been overshadowed by whatever drama Tyler is creating? The room fell silent. Amber's parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats while Tyler stared at me with his mouth open. For 30 years, I have been the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who never caused problems or asked for bailouts. And for 30 years, I've been rewarded by being treated as an afterthought in this family. I turned to face Tyler directly. Do you even have a job right now? Tyler's face flushed. That's none of your business. He's between opportunities, my mother interjected quickly. He's been unemployed for 8 months, I said flatly. I know because his former boss, Ryan, is my friend from college, and he told me Tyler was fired for repeatedly showing up late. Tyler jumped to his feet. You had no right to ask about me behind my back. Does Amber know about the $20,000 in credit card debt you're carrying? I continued ignoring his outburst. Or about the fact that our parents dipped into their retirement to pay your rent for half a year? Amber's eyes widened as she turned to Tyler. $20,000 in debt. You told me it was just a few $100s. It's not a big deal, Tyler stammered. Mom and Dad are helping me sort it out. They always do, don't they? I said. They bail you out, make excuses for you, and enable you to keep making the same irresponsible choices while expecting me to understand when they can barely contribute to the wedding I've been saving for years. Now wait just a minute. My father interrupted, his face reddening. We raised you better than to air family business in front of others. You raised me to be responsible, hard-working, and independent, I countered. And then you punished me for it by treating me like I matter less than Tyler. You trained me to expect nothing while giving him everything. I felt Julia stand beside me, her presence giving me strength. Nestor and I have put everything we have into this wedding, she said, her voice quiet but firm. We've saved for years, made compromises, and worked so hard to create one perfect day to celebrate our love. Is it really so much to ask that it remain our day? Of course we want you to have your special day, my mother said defensively. Nobody's taking that away from you. Aren't you? I challenged. By supporting Tyler's plan to propose during our wedding, you're literally taking the spotlight away from us. Again, you're being selfish, Tyler muttered. Something in me broke at that word. Selfish. Selfish. You want to hijack the wedding I've spent years planning and saving for so you can propose to a woman you've dated for 4 months without having to plan or pay for your own special moment. And I am selfish. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. This stops now. Julia and I have a boundary, and it's a simple one. Our wedding day is about our marriage, not about Tyler's proposal or anything else. Looking directly at my parents, I continued, if you can't respect that basic boundary, then you are not welcome at our wedding. It's that simple. You don't mean that? My mother gasped. I've never meant anything more in my life, I replied. This is not negotiable. My father stood up, his face flushed with anger. If that's your attitude, perhaps we should reconsider our contribution to this wedding. You mean the $500 you gave us after paying thousands to cover Tyler's mistakes? Go ahead and take it back. Julia and I planned for this possibility. We can manage without it, just like I've managed everything else in my life without your support. Julia stepped forward. We love you all, but we deserve this one day to celebrate our commitment without it becoming about someone else. That's not unreasonable or selfish. It's a normal boundary that most families would respect without question. Tyler slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You've always been jealous of me. No, Tyler, I said quietly. I've always been invisible because of you. There's a difference. My brother stormed out of the dining room, followed quickly by my parents calling after him. Amber sat frozen at the table, looking confused and upset. Her parents awkwardly excused themselves, promising to talk later. Within minutes, the house had emptied, except for Julia and me standing in the aftermath of the explosion. The silence was deafening. After everyone left, Julia and I stood in my parents' dining room, surrounded by half-eaten food, and the weight of decades of family dysfunction finally exposed. Are you okay? Julia asked, reaching for my hand. I let out a shaky breath. I have no idea. I can't believe I actually said all that. It needed to be said, she assured me. For years they've been treating you like your feelings don't matter. We drove home in contemplative silence, both processing the magnitude of what had just happened. 8 days remained until our wedding, and I had no idea if my family would even attend. The thought brought both anxiety and a strange sense of relief. Whatever happens, we're getting married on June 15th, Julia said, as we pulled into our driveway. With or without them? With or without them, I repeated, finding comfort in the certainty of us, even as everything else felt uncertain. The week passed in a blur of final preparations and uncomfortable silence from my family. No calls, no texts, nothing. Julia's parents stepped up, beautifully handling last-minute details and providing the emotional support my family should have offered. When I thanked them, Julia's father simply clapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is what family does, son, the real kind." On the morning of our wedding, I stood in a small room at the venue, adjusting my tie, still unsure if my parents or brother would show. Julia was getting ready with her bridesmaids in another room, and I could occasionally hear bursts of laughter drifting down the hallway. Despite everything, we had made it here. 30 minutes before the ceremony, there was a knock at the door. My best friend Paul opened it to reveal my parents standing awkwardly in the hallway. They were dressed for the wedding, my mother clutching her purse tightly, my father looking uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit. "May we come in?" my mother asked hesitantly. I nodded, and Paul tactfully excused himself. An uncomfortable silence filled the room as we faced each other. "You look very handsome," my mother finally said, her voice catching. "Thank you," I replied, unsure what else to say. My father cleared his throat. "We wanted to let you know that we respect your wishes. There will be no proposal today." He said it stiffly, as if reading from a script. "This is your day." I nodded, not quite ready to offer forgiveness, but appreciating the gesture. "Thank you. That means a lot to me." "Is Tyler coming?" I asked after another stretch of silence. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "He said he needs some time. Amber broke up with him after learning about his financial situation. He's staying at our house right now." There was a familiar note in her voice, the same one she used whenever Tyler faced consequences. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired of the whole dynamic. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. The ceremony was everything Julia and I had hoped for. Standing at the altar, watching her walk toward me, in her beautiful dress, all the family drama faded away. We exchanged our vows surrounded by people who genuinely supported us, and for once, I didn't feel the shadow of my brother hanging over the moment. At the reception, as Julia and I shared our first dance without interruption, I caught my parents watching from their table. There was something different in their expressions, something I couldn't quite name, but it felt like the first glimpse of understanding. As the evening progressed, I was making my way to the bar when I spotted a familiar figure slipping in through a side door. Tyler, dressed in a rumpled suit, stood awkwardly by the wall watching the celebration. Our eyes met across the room, and after a moment's hesitation, he approached me. "Can we talk?" he asked, "just for a minute." We stepped outside onto a small patio away from the music and laughter of the reception. "No, Amber?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. Tyler shook his head. "She's gone. After hearing about the debt and everything, she said she needed someone more stable." He laughed humorlessly. "Guess I can't blame her." We stood in silence for a moment, years of competition and resentment hanging between us. "Your wedding looks nice," he finally said. "Julia looks beautiful." "Thank you for coming," I replied. "I wasn't sure you would." Tyler ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I recognized from childhood. "Look, I wanted to say, you were right. About the proposal thing. It was a stupid idea. I just thought," he trailed off, "thought what I thought it would fix things with Amber. We'd been fighting a lot, and I figured a big romantic gesture would smooth everything over." He looked down at his shoes. "I didn't think about how it would affect your day. I never do think about that stuff, do I?" It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever received from my brother, and despite everything I felt, a small crack in the wall I'd built around myself. "Mom and Dad said some things, after you left that night," Tyler continued, "about how they've always treated us differently. I didn't want to hear it at first, but they might be right." I didn't know what to say. This vulnerable version of Tyler was unfamiliar territory. Anyway, he straightened up. "I just wanted to say congratulations and sorry. I'll go now. I don't want to cause any more drama." As he turned to leave, I surprised myself by saying, "You could stay, you know. Have some cake at least." Tyler gave me a small, genuine smile, so different from his usual confident grin, maybe just for a little while. He ended up staying for the rest of the reception, keeping a respectful distance, and even having a cordial conversation with Julia's father about potential job opportunities. It was strange and tentative, but it felt like the first real interaction we'd had in years. The months following our wedding brought unexpected changes to my family dynamic. The confrontation had cracked open decades of unhealthy patterns, forcing us all to examine our roles. My parents called 2 weeks after the wedding, asking if Julia and I would join them for dinner. With some trepidation, we agreed. The conversation was stilted. At first, everyone carefully avoiding landmines of past grievances. Then my father cleared his throat and did something unprecedented. He apologized. "We never meant to make you feel less important," he said, looking genuinely distressed. "We just thought you were so capable, so self-sufficient, that you didn't need us the way Tyler did. That's the problem," I explained. "You rewarded his dependence and punished my independence. It taught both of us the wrong lessons." My mother wiped away tears. "We thought we were helping him, but we were just enabling him to stay stuck. And in the process, we missed so much of your life." It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. Over the following weeks, my parents began setting boundaries with Tyler for perhaps the first time. They helped him create a budget and a plan to repay his debt, but made it clear they wouldn't be bailing him out anymore. To everyone's surprise, especially mine, Tyler rose to the challenge. He found a job at a local marketing firm. Nothing glamorous, but stable. He moved into a smaller apartment he could actually afford. When I met him for coffee 1 month after he started working, he proudly showed me his first self-earned paycheck. "It's not much," he admitted, "but it's mine. No one can take that away." I recognized in his expression the same feeling I'd had earning my first paycheck at 16, the sense of accomplishment that comes from standing on your own feet. "That's a good feeling, isn't it?" I said. He nodded. I should have felt it a lot sooner. Julia and I established healthier boundaries with my family. We scheduled regular dinners, but made it clear when certain topics were off limits. We declined invitations when we needed space without feeling guilty. Slowly, my parents began to respect these boundaries, even appreciate them. The most profound change was within myself. For years, I had defined myself in opposition to Tyler, the responsible counterpoint to his chaos. Without that dynamic, I found myself exploring who I was beyond those constraints. I discovered I could be spontaneous without being irresponsible kind, without being a pushover. 1 year after our wedding, Julia and I celebrated our anniversary with a weekend getaway to the same Michigan lakeside where I had proposed. Sitting on the beach watching the sunset, I reflected on how much had changed. "Do you regret it?" Julia asked, reading my thoughts, as she often did. Standing up to them that night, I considered the question carefully, not for a second. It was painful, and it's still complicated, but it was necessary. Sometimes you have to break something down completely before you can rebuild it stronger. "You know what I'm most proud of," she said, leaning her head against my shoulder. "You didn't just stand up for our wedding day. You stood up for yourself after a lifetime of stepping aside." She was right. For 30 years, I had silently accepted my role as the overlooked son, the responsible one who never caused trouble but never received recognition either. That confrontation at the dinner table wasn't just about a wedding, it was about claiming my worth in a family that had taken it for granted. The truth is, enabling someone is not loving them. It took me years to understand that by constantly rescuing Tyler from consequences, my parents had stunted his growth and damaged our relationship. Real love means allowing people to face the natural outcomes of their choices, to fail, learn, and grow. And self-respect means setting boundaries even when they're uncomfortable, even when they disrupt the familiar family dynamic. It means recognizing that you deserve to be seen, to be valued, to have your important moments remain yours. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed your boundaries? Do you struggle with being the responsible one who never gets the same consideration as others? Share your experience in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are with the people closest to us, but protecting your boundaries is never selfish. It is necessary for genuine relationships to flourish. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be more than an afterthought in your own life story.